Hi, I'm Eloise Ansell and I'm here today with advanced biogeometry instructor Kris Attard. So Kris, can you tell us a bit more about who biogeometry would interest?
Well,
I know you're going to say everybody.
well, I guess yes, one could say everybody, though of course with any subject, whatever it is, one really has to be interested in something, right, to be attracted to it. But literally I would say everybody, purely to cover the important point that it is not a technical subject, that one needs any experience or any particular, previous knowledge.
Yeah.
If somebody is interested in what it sounds like, what it offers, and maybe the kind of subjects that it brings about, then they can just come over. But essentially, who does it interest? First of all, anybody who is interested in moving themselves forward. Basically, when we're saying that you can bring about harmonious energies, harmonious qualities, that is, in a space, in your house, in your office, in a clinic, in a hospital room, then already it clearly affects everybody. But sometimes people need to have the motivation to do something, and this provides them with an excellent tool to do that. So on everyday levels, yes, you will learn how to harmonize the spaces we live and work in. You learn how to harmonize the food you eat, yourself, use biosignatures to help maintain yourself in a state of good well-being on all levels. Let's remember that this is not just a therapy or anything like that. In fact, it is not a therapy, but something that addresses harmony on different levels of our being, from the lowest material to the highest.
The stuff we can't see.
Including the stuff we can't see, the part we can't see, which actually to anybody who is not new to holistic science will know is actually there's more of us that we do not see than there is that we see. It's like Carl, it kind of reminds me of the analogy of Carl Jung of the iceberg, where he would say, it's like an iceberg, you only see a tip floating above. And for us, that's the tip that we're conscious of, our conscious mind, our body, etc. But there is this huge bulk below the surface of perception, which is our subconscious, our unconscious, the other higher levels that make us up. Okay, so there are also specialized segments of people who would be particularly interested also in biogeometry. First of all, we might mention architects and designers. Yeah. This is obvious. I mean, Dr. Karim himself, the founder of biogeometry, is an architect, and in fact, he kind of began to work with biogeometry from that point of view, because, as we say in biogeometry, as Dr. Karim nicely puts it, and I like this, an architect is not a builder of walls. He is a sculptor of space. Yeah. So the architect, he or she, actually creates the space for people to live in. Sometimes even we people who live in our own houses, we mistakenly kind of think that it's the walls that make up the house. They're not. The walls simply create the space that you live in. We don't live in the walls, we live in the space. So the quality of that space, and anyone who's sensitive will know that sometimes you walk into a building and you feel, either you really feel comfortable, or there are places where you do not feel at ease at all. Because there are many, many factors, as we talk about, that contribute to this. It could just be things like earth energies, as we call them, where it is actually located. Sometimes, even when you sleep, your bed happens to be located in a place which may actually be detrimental for you. We've seen during the seminar that survey, that study, for instance, done in Europe, where they even had people with very serious diseases, and some of them, they reverse the situation purely by moving their bed. But of course, you need to know what you're doing. In the sense, you need to.
You could move it somewhere worse.
Exactly. Well, thankfully, we give that knowledge in the course, and you learn to test for these energies and harmonize the room for them, etc. So, with architects, obviously, if architects can learn not just the aesthetic rules, not just the engineering rules that they learn, but learn these other level of rules and how to implement them about creating a harmonious space, which has nothing to do with how expensive the building is or other things. It's all about how the layout is done in line with these ancient laws. Then, no matter what the building is, how big or small it is, it can, if you bring about these qualities, then not only the person lives and feels better in their place, but they will actually be healthier. I like that when we saw that Dr. Karim in that interview where he said that in theory, in theory, the architect should be the first front line of help, because if your house supports you, and we proved this out, if your house supports you and nurtures you in a way that keeps you in balance, then you're less likely to have issues which will take you to the other level of medicine, which then has to cure you.
It's a basic need of a human being to have safety and have a home of some kind.
As you say here in England, as safe as houses, right?
Safe as houses, and you know, so many people who are in houses that they hate and they just feel uncomfortable in them.
You would be surprised, there'll be so many. I mean, I'm sure you meet people in your own work. I meet a lot of people in my own work as well who have houses where you might look at them and they're amazing.
They look on paper.
But let's face it, perhaps all of us have even had the experience. You may stay in a hotel. Maybe it's not a cheap hotel, but regardless of how nice the room is, equipped with the latest stuff, latest TV, sometimes you say, why am I not sleeping well? And it's more than just the mattress sometimes, you know? So so as an architect, one would learn all about this, but more importantly, learn very simple, yet immensely effective, what we call the principles of biogeometry design. Very simple principles that sometimes even relate to things like the perspectives or angular rotation of a figure, things like that, which can bring about these qualities that we say.
And it seems too simple sometimes. It's like Chris shows something, you're like, is that it? And then you measure it and you go, wow! It's just
that is, Eloise, that is actually one of the, I would say it's one of the issues we have in biogeometry, that some of its core principles are so simple that it's hard to get people to believe in them. And, we have this thing in our life that our paradigm tends to be formed by what society tells us. So if something is not openly discussed, we don't know, then no, it can't be true. Even though, history has proven over and over and over again that, we learn the validity of these things. So,
and we're constantly being told that things have to be complicated.
Yes, absolutely.
So intellect has to be involved.
So architects definitely have a lot to benefit from this. As I said, Dr. Karim is an architect, and I've said really, and when you see some of the projects that have been created with biogeometry, one can experience it and say, what's going on here? It's like, how can we create this? So architects, designers, the difference being that a designer may not work with houses or buildings, but thankfully these principles work the same whether we're applying them to designing a layout of a building on like a draftsman's plan, or whether one is simply designing a logo or a product. I'm very happy to see, even amongst my students now, people embarking on projects who are professional designers, for instance, and embarking on projects for utility items and products and incorporating biogeometry. So that is an excellent use, because apart from the product doing what it's meant to do, it will actually help the person. And there is no field, absolutely no field in which biogeometry cannot be applied, because everything is about shape. There's nothing we don't do in life that isn't concerned with shape, right? So if instead of one form you use another, and sometimes it's not even about a dramatic thing. You may say, I need to design a box for a bottle or a product or whatever. It's not about changing the shape of the box. It may be about tweaking slightly the dimensions to get certain particular harmonic proportions. Or it may simply be in incorporating elements in the actual logo, the graphics, the design, the color balancing, things like that, which will make a dramatic world of difference in that product and whoever uses it. It's not exaggerated to say that that product will heal the person using it, despite whatever its use happens to be. So that's for designers. And of course, with designers, one can include landscapers, gardeners, because they also work with shape. In fact, there are some interesting uses there. I always smile when I have friends showing me what they've done with one of the things which about we learn. Sometimes even a simple arrangement of 3 pieces of wood in a certain way around the tree, and that tree will grow higher than all the others. It's almost like seems unfair, When they show me, I said, "Oh, poor other trees." But as you know, this has been done with orchards, where the fruit from trees grown with the biogeometry method, even though the other trees were next to them and got the same amount of light, shade, water, the same amount of care, just having the biogeometry there means that these trees produce fruit, which when you see it side by side with the other one, keep it in an apartment, same temperature. The others, let's say apples, start to caramelize, you know how they shrivel, whereas the others persist longer. That means one thing, their life force is stronger.
They're more vital.
Exactly, their vitality level, sometimes called the etheric level of the item. There is more life force. More life force means it's more nutritive for you.
Yeah, because we were going to a restaurant sometimes, you go, this food seems dead.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not.
Tell me about it. I fly a lot. You know, I always look at the food on a plane and say, like, you know, it should have a tombstone, rest in peace on it. But anyhow.
And that's another field. It could be really useful for farmers and
absolutely,
like helping the cattle. And I know there's been studies done on chicken.
Yes, there's been something done with animal husbandry and chickens, and in particularly not too long ago, there was a major project completed in Canada where it was distinctly shown, and this was attested by the Farmers Co-op, in fact, in an official report, that using biogeometry could attain the same levels of health and mortality of the animals, just as if those animals were treated to the doses of antibiotics and stuff. And so they live longer, they have the same health, but of course it's even better because nothing is being ingested. The animal is actually healthier, and when people, you know, are taking their product, whether it's eggs or whatever, they're not ingesting any of the... It's the same with pesticides in food. We all know what a huge problem this is. Even people like myself, if I don't eat meat, I have to eat mashed vegetables, but at the same time, a lot of the vegetables you have to be careful where you buy because of pesticides. But there have been studies, and I even know people who did studies following the course, who did projects, where you apply biogeometry, let's say, to a field of crops, and it is possible, of course, if you do the right conditions, it is possible sometimes to find that you can use no pesticides or even less pesticides and yet still have a good rate of health, you know, without crops being attacked. So there are many possibilities. It all depends on one's initiative and what they work in. So yes, farmers is another.
Another. We've had artists on the course. We've had architects. We've had firemen.
Yes, I've had people who actually. I've even had people who actually breed fish. Breed fish for commercial purposes who have used it. Yes. It's never ending, really. Isn't
it's never ending.
So, So, anyone we've missed? Oh, of course, therapists. We could say something about therapists because many people come through the networks that you and I know. For therapists, of course, if we are saying that biogeometry offers the ability to bring about harmony in a person, especially using things like biosignatures, it can be very helpful. It offers them an added layer, an added very powerful tool in their toolbox. And the beautiful thing is they can use it over and above whatever they do. And even one other thing about therapists, so many therapists work hard on people and they neglect themselves. Is your clinic balanced? Does your clinic have detrimental
alternatives?
Like when you've got
ill people coming through all day, it's something to be really aware of.
So even just balancing out your clinic for yourself will already see a huge result in the people you bring and in how you and also in how you work.
And there's lots of tools as well, other than just the biosignatures that people can use.
Even
and
just
personally, for me, when I'm in clinics seeing clients, I always take my cube with me.
Yes. Makes a huge difference in your clinic, doesn't it? Especially when you get people coming in sometimes sick. You never really know what they're bringing as well in terms of energy. Sometimes you feel that heaviness, don't you? Well, the cube, as you know, thankfully helps to clear up a lot of that. One other branch that one is worth mentioning, we've mentioned designers and architects, because it's a very specialized field, is actually Feng Shui consultants. Obviously, Feng Shui consultants, their objective is to harmonize houses, and this is exactly what we also do in biogeometry. Now, although biogeometry works in a different way through what we call centering, as opposed, for example, to establishing elemental balance, harmonizing the direction, just as Feng Shui does.
Feng Shui is like moving furniture and...
It can be, although there is more to it than that, of course.
I'm generalising for those that whereas biogeometry is making use of what's there.
Makes use of what's there, exactly, and we create the transcendental center, as we call it. But the beautiful thing with this is that if one is established in a system of Feng Shui, traditional or whatever, whether they use the 8 dimensions, flying stars methods or whatever, they can still use those methods. But once you then put on a layer of biogeometry, this not only takes whatever they've done further, but it actually helps ensure that if the balance is upset, because sometimes you can create things for a balance, to get the elements, or the water and mountain stars as they're called in flying stars. But if the Feng Shui consultant leaves and the next day the client decides to dramatically, yes, take down a wall or take something off, he or she may actually upset the balance which the Feng Shui consultant so carefully provided. The beautiful thing is creating the center of biogeometry will work despite this. So it not only enhances whatever a Feng Shui consultant does, it can provide an added layer over and above. So it really is a great course for Feng Shui consultants. As you know, we had one consultant who flew across the world to come here. I've had people in Germany and UK who are Feng Shui consultants, and Ireland who use it regularly, and it really goes very well. I would say it's like an additional next step that will take what you already know, the powerful sciences of Feng Shui, to a whole new dimension, literally. Literally speaking. Okay. So it's
never ending, really.
No, I think it's a course that can
sit
really
here for 4 hours talking about who could come.
So it's a course that can really be useful for more people.
Perfect. Thank you.